First and foremost, Pennsylvania is a closed primary state. What does that mean? What we need to understand right at the top is that Democrats essentially pick the next mayor because we have a very skewed ratio in our city. It's about 80 to 20 Democrat Republican. So whoever wins on May 16th, Tuesday, May 16th, that will be the de facto winner. And there's a formality of a general election in November and then an inauguration in January 2024. So we have this very long period as advocates, a full year from January 2023 to January 2024 to build these relationships and make an impact on the priorities of the next mayor, to build relationships and get our vision in front of every candidate that wants to be the next leader of this city. Another thing to understand is that not that many people vote in these elections. We live in a city of 1.5 million people, but when Jim Kenney defeated State Senator Anthony Williams in 2015, only about 243,000 people voted. So that's literally 15% of the city's population is choosing who the next mayor is. So that's both a challenge and an opportunity. If we have 1,000 people making noise about an issue, we can have a really outsized impact because a big universe votes, a smaller universe volunteers, an even smaller universe donates. An even smaller universe is knocking on the door to talk to them about specific issues like every month from now until January 2024. So that's the sort of scale of opportunity that we have. In addition, in Philadelphia, major voting factors are race and education level, and also celebrity. We saw it with Obama initially. He was just such a political star that came out of nowhere. He didn't work his way up through the Democratic Party. He just seized upon his mediagenic skills and his celebrity power, and he became a president after only a single term, not even a full term as a senator, I believe. And then we see the flip side of that with Trump. He was also a celebrity. And we see that all over the place. So celebrity and emotion is a huge part of our elections, like it or not. Here in Philadelphia, 55% of our voters are Black voters. So what does that mean? It means that no candidate, whether they're Black or white, can really get elected without significant cross-racial appeal. Jim Kenney was very intentional. Mayor Nutter was very intentional of appealing to the quote unquote other side of the racial aisle. And then more recently, ever since Bernie Sanders' campaign, we've had a rise of a left of center organization in Philadelphia called Reclaim Philadelphia. And to a lesser extent, the Working Families Party, which is a whole other political party that is winning elections. And in fact, Reclaim recently just threw an early endorsement behind perhaps the most left of center candidate in the race at this time. But that said, well, we want to look to the 2007 race. That is the most comparable race to this race for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of well-known and established political people are in the race, but not a lot of name recognition either. So in the Nutter race, he was then councilman of the Roxborough-Manayunk area. He won. He got to City Hall as our mayor in 2007 with only 37% of the vote. And he was running in a field with a millionaire, just like we have Jeff Brown and Alan Dom now, multimillionaire, Bob Brady, Chaka Fattah, and Dwight Evans. So those were all well-known political characters in the Philly scene with known constituencies of people that had voted for them prior and voted for them repeatedly. And so that's very similar to what we're looking at now. We're going to see a winner emerge with much less than 50% of the field. So there's not going to be a mandate coming out of this. And so it really dovetails nicely with the 10K independence mantra, which is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. If the next mayor is wise, they'll come out of the race with maybe a 30% of the voters, getting them to the winner's circle. And they're going to have to build a mandate by collaborating with constituencies. Notable, when Nutter entered the race in 2007, he was considered a long shot. And so just keep that in mind as you hear people say, oh, well, this person's the front runner. Like, this is anyone's race. It is not possible to predict right now. There are too many unknown factors, which we'll get to in a second. And again, there's a lot of very competent and accomplished legislators in the race and our city controller, Rebecca Reinhardt. So they all have accomplishments under their belt, but in the context of a violence crisis, which candidate is going to be able to talk about a track record that is aligned with the top concerns of Philadelphians right now, especially Black Philadelphia? And so every candidate has a different track record that they cannot go back in history and change. Another thing to note about this field is that each of these candidates are sort of in different lanes. For example, Jeff Brown and Alan Dom. They both are white males that appeal to the type of voter who wants to see city government run more like a business, more efficiently. They're very successful business people in their own right, but they're going to essentially split votes. They are naturally appealing to a similar voter. And with both of them in the race, they're fighting with one another for the same voters at the same time that they're trying to build cross-racial appeal or break into new constituencies with appeal. They may or may not understand a business like an independent business, a one-person shop. That's another conversation for a little bit later. So they each have their strengths and weaknesses going into this. Both of those candidates are going to have to compete in a city where the majority of voters are Black voters, and of the universe of Black voters, way more than a majority are female voters, and voters generally are average age in the 60s. So all of us who are on Twitter, we're talking to each other. The bulk of voters in the city are generally not on Twitter. Retired age, Black females are probably going to decide this election. And so the question is, who is going to be most appealing to some of those constituencies and because of what issues? Lastly, we don't know what opposition research is out there, right? We don't know the dirt that each different candidate has on the other candidates. All of them have made some sort of decision about who they think is the front runner or who they think is the candidate to beat. Every campaign has a different opinion about that, and they will spend their opposition research dollars accordingly. And so if they find dirt, when will they use dirt? How would the target of that dirt, respond? Will it strengthen their brand or weaken their brand, turn voters off, or rally voters to defend their favorite candidate? We don't know what's going to happen with opposition research. So this is just the start. And in our efforts to engage with the different candidates, all of you will learn things about that candidate. Are they responsive? Are they dismissive? We'll learn things. We'll catch signals in the course of trying to collaborate with them on the campaign trail. And our goal is to be so well organized that every person who has a shot of winning on May 16th, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 candidates that are in the final stretch, that they're all committed to collaborating with the 10K Independent Project. And they've all shared stories of these types of business models that we all are familiar with, but they're not familiar with. So the whole thing is really an education opportunity. And in the final stretch, I think the field will narrow and there'll be some natural enthusiasm and affinity as the cycle plays out.